Left eerily vacant for years, these A-list mansions each have a shocking tale to tell, from apparent hauntings and heartbreaking tragedy to shameless corruption, protracted legal battles, and a cult takeover. Brace yourselves as we reveal the eyebrow-raising stories behind these abandoned celebrity mansions, including Muhammad Hadid's tragic mega mansion, Boris Becker's squatted villa, and Nelly's luxurious mansion that was left empty for almost a decade and now has a new owner. Up first, we have Nelly's lavish Tuscan-style mansion. During the early 90s, you couldn't turn on the radio without hearing Nelly's huge hits Dilemma and Hot in Here. The rapper is still thought to be worth an astonishing $40 million. Back in 2002, during the height of his fame, the star bought this lavish Tuscan-style mansion for an estimated $2 million. Reports suggest that Nelly never actually wanted to live in the house. Instead, he purchased it with the intention of flipping it, much like some of the other well-known celebrity house developers. But for some unknown reason, the 10,800 square foot mansion has sat empty for the past 2 decades. Though it's unclear why the Ride With Me singer ditched his makeover plans, it's likely the home proved too expensive to restore. Sitting on a prominent 12-acre lot in Missouri, the home benefits from fantastic landscape views from almost every room, while the exterior has a white stucco finish with castle-like turrets. The interior is brimming with high-end fixtures, think vaulted ceilings, arched windows, marble floors, full-height fireplaces, and imposing columns. Constructed in 1998, the home featured 6 bedrooms and 7 bathrooms, as well as a grand entrance foyer, a double-height lounge, and a great room overlooking the garden, yet it remained unfinished. In fact, the house currently has no plumbing and some rooms are missing floors. This extreme fixer-upper certainly has plenty of renovation potential though. Outside, the huge garden offers an abandoned basketball court and pool, as well as woodland trails that wind down towards the river valley. Nelly eventually decided to part ways with the property, listing it for $599,000 in February of 2021. Unsurprisingly, the colossal estate found a buyer within just a few days of hitting the market. But the story doesn't end there. It's been reported that the new owner is the Kingdom of God Global Church, based in St. Louis. Rumor has it the church has bought up a number of properties in the last couple of years, and there have been some strange sightings around the residences. One neighbor believed up to 40 people were living in one of the homes, while the FBI reportedly came by to ask another question about the people living there. Locals have suggested the church could be some kind of cult, so who knows what this mysterious buyer could have in store for Nelly's former mansion. Up next, go to Muhammad's doomed mega mansion. You may already be aware of Muhammad's doomed mega mansion since the colossal spread and has been in and out of the news for around a decade. Owned by multi-millionaire real estate developer Muhammad Hadid, father of supermodels Gigi and Bella Hadid, the extensive estate at one time could be on a hillside plot in Bel Air, Los Angeles. Since construction began in 2011, Hadid has been locked in a fierce legal battle with the Los Angeles authorities. The rather ambitious self-build project has caused plenty of controversy due to its scale and location. Muhammad apparently intended to build a 14,000 square foot mansion on the lot, but by 2014 the property had grown significantly in size without the necessary permits. Pictured here, the local authorities discovered that Hadid's new home covered 30,000 square feet across all the floors. They immediately revoked the developer's building permits, which should have drawn any construction work to a close. Yet Muhammad is rumored to have carried on regardlessly, adding a 3rd floor and a pool deck, all without a license. The LA authorities decided to take action, and Hadid was sentenced to 200 hours of community service for illegal construction. Then, in 2018, Muhammad's neighbors, who dubbed the huge man Starship Enterprise, rallied together across the LA Times, and according to the LA Times, brought a lawsuit against him over the fears the hillside home was on the brink of collapse. After a lengthy legal battle, the developer lost his case in June 2020 when the California Supreme Court declared the property a clear and present danger. The property sat unfinished and abandoned for 10 years, and after a failed attempt to stop the destruction by declaring bankruptcy, the unbelievably extensive abandoned mansion hit the real estate market in January of 2021 for $8.5 million, which is a huge loss considering the real estate tycoon hoped to sell it for $100 million. Labeled only as development opportunity, the Hilton and Highland listing stated that the current construction will be demolished following closure of escrow at no additional cost. After failing to find a buyer, the price was eventually lowered to $5.5 million before it was auctioned off for $5 million, and proceeds from the sale were originally supposed to fund the property's demolition, but because the winning bid came in short of the listing price, Sahara agreed to pay the bill. It's now been totally razed to the ground. This will likely be a big relief for neighbors, and Hadid's own architect reportedly feared the building would slide down the hill and kill someone. Up next, we go to Courtney Love's country retreat. The singer, film star, and widow of Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain put her grungy 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom country retreat in Olympia, Washington State on the market in 2018 for $320,000. According to the report, the property, which sits on 7 acres of land, had been left to rot and Mother Nature has been taken over. The realtor stated in the listing description that the home was a major fixer-upper that required a ton of work to return it to its original state for human habitation. Not mincing any words, the real estate agent stated that it needed everything done and presumably called for a buyer with very deep pockets. Love acquired the property in 1995, more or less a year after the death of her husband, but clearly hadn't stayed there in years. The former hard-living rocker paid $447,000 for the country retreat. She decided to sell the home, which includes a number of neglected outbuildings, at a considerable loss, having already attempted to offload it in 2011. Considering the property's atrocious condition, it's not difficult to figure out why Love opted for such a low asking price. The interior of the house was seriously run down, and as you can see from this and the previous photo, the walls of the 8-stall stable were covered in graffiti while bricks littered the floor. The outhouse was positively crying for a comprehensive makeover. While the former rock star's home was decrepit, to say the least, the guest cottage was in the worst condition, having succumbed to fire damage some time ago. Fortunately, a buyer was found and an offer was made in 2018. Now off the market, the estate appears to have been sold at long last and is no doubt in midst of a major rehab. Up next, we go to Steve Jobs' California mansion. Apple co-founder Steve Jobs purchased the Jackling House in Woodside, California in 1984. The Spanish Revival property was designed by eminent architect George Washington Smith and built in 1925 for copper mining magnate Daniel Cohen Jackling, hence the name. Jobs must have been fond of the house at first, but he reportedly grew to loathe the property and moved out in 1994. From 2000, the home remained vacant, and Jobs spent the last years of his life petitioning to get the mansion demolished. Although the paint had started to peel away and the plaster was crumbling, the past splendor of the 35-room mansion is just about evident in these photos. Spanning 15,000 square feet, the house boasted open-air balconies, a games room, marble bathrooms, and a grand staircase, as well as reception rooms complete with showy chandeliers. Jobs ultimately won the battle, but in a cruel twist of fate, the Apple CEO lost his life against pancreatic cancer and died 8 months later. During the 11 years of its vacancy, the billionaire's abandoned mansion lacked any kind of maintenance and fell into an appalling state of despair with nobody to look after it. The decor began to be taken over by nature. The property was covered in vines and was attracting the attention of curious photographers who took these amazing pictures. Mold had crept across the ceilings and old appliances were strewn about the place. Thankfully, the local authority collected a number of artifacts from the home before it was destroyed, including door handles, chandeliers, and most impressive of all, a massive pipe organ. Up next, we have Liza Minnelli's childhood home. Built in 1925 and subsequently redesigned by noted Hollywood Regency architect John Wolfe. This Spanish Revival mansion in LA's Beverly Hills was purchased in the mid-1950s by Oscar-winning director Vincent Minnelli, following his divorce from Judy Garland. During her childhood, the former couple's daughter, Liza, spent much of her time at this house. The celebrity's childhood home on Crescent Drive was once lavishly decorated by Vincent Minnelli, with numerous chandeliers and opulent fabrics and furnishings. When the famed director passed away in 1986 at the age of 83, the house was left to Liza, now a big-time Hollywood star in her own right, but only on one condition. While Liza was granted ownership, Mr. Minnelli instructed that his fourth wife, Lee, should be permitted to live in the house as long as she desired. The arrangement worked out fine until the year 2000, when Liza decided to sell the property. Lee was offered a condo but turned it down and stayed put, even when the house was sold in 2002. Things turned nasty when Liza stopped paying the bills on the house and ceased paying staff, who ended up working for free. Lee filed a lawsuit against her stepdaughter, but dropped the case when Liza agreed to pay the new owners rent so Lee could continue living in the mansion. Lee died there in 2009, but the home was seemingly left to languish and decay, attracting urban explorers. The once dream home wasn't looking its best by a long shot. Holes peppered the ceilings, and the wallpaper was peeling away, and shabby furniture and debris were scattered across the floors. Sadly, the home appears to be abandoned till this day. The Queen really outdid herself in 1986 when she gifted her now disgraced son, Prince Andrew, Duke of York, and his wife, Sarah, Duchess of York, a 665-acre parcel of land on the Sunny Hill Park estate in Berkshire, following their wedding that same year. A Swiss 12-bedroom mansion was designed featuring grand reception rooms, stables, and a swimming pool, and construction work began on the flashy royal residence in 1987. Completed in 1990, the property was dubbed South York and the Dallas Palace due to its uncanny resemblance to the ranch house in the 1980s TV show of the same name. Andrew and Fergie's marriage broke down not long after they moved in, and the couple divorced in 1996. Yet the duo continued to live under the same roof with their two daughters. Following the Queen Mother's death in 2002, the Duke decamped to the Royal Lodge in Windsor, her former residence, and Sunny Hill Park was put on the market. The Duchess and their daughters followed in 2006, leaving the property vacant. The Duke, who has since become embroiled in the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking scandal, was said to have remortgaged Sunny Hill Park to cover the cost of renovating the Royal Lodge. He lucked out in 2007 when he sold it to Kazakhstani investor Keynes Rakishev for $21 million, $4.3 million over the asking price, in a deal viewed by some as very suspect. The ultimate owner was later revealed to be billionaire Timur Kolipev. By 2009, Sunny Hill Park was decrepit and the property was pretty much abandoned. In December 2013, planning permission was granted to replace the rundown royal residence with a sprawling manor, but demolition work wouldn't start until 2015. A far cry from the British royals' family's grand private homes, the eyesore was eventually reduced to rubble in 2016, and a shiny new mansion has taken shape in its place. Flush with cash at this time, Boris Becker bought the Spanish island of Mallorca in 1997. The German tennis ace purchased the property for a reported $598,000 and proceeded to spend a fortune on it, adding a pool with a Moroccan-style house, guest house, basketball court, and more. But the dream house soon turned into a nightmare. Becker was slapped with a $255,000 fine in 2004 for additions that weren't approved by the authorities and was ordered to tear them down. In 2007, the property was put on the market for a hefty asking price of $18.4 million, but no buyer could be found. The Grand Slam singles champion struggled to afford the upkeep. In 2011, Becker was sued by his gardener, who was owed $354,000. As ordered by the Spanish court, the property was confiscated until the outstanding bill was paid. It was confiscated again in 2014 when Becker failed to settle an invoice for building work. Becker eventually paid the invoice and reoccupied the property, only to lose it for good following his bankruptcy in 2017. The finca passed to the administrators but was commandeered by German squatter George Beres and members of his so-called Intergalactic Auxiliary and Rescue Command. In 2019, a legal court ruled against the squatters and ordered them to leave, with the crew removed by the police in January 2020. Now crumbling, the abandoned mansion faces an uncertain future. Becker may have had the law on his side when it came to squatters, but according to The Guardian, he himself was jailed for 2.5 years in April 2022 for hiding millions of pounds worth of assets following his bankruptcy, including a share of $1 million in property in Germany. The former tennis star is set up to serve half of his sentence.